So if you click the audio button, then it'll let you mute. So my name is Maren Setterquist. I am the president of Willow Glen Willow Glen Elementary. That's been a while since I've been president there. President of Willow Glen Neighborhood Association. And I appreciate you all being here. We love having as much participation as possible. And we're looking forward to some updates that we're going to get tonight. Before we get started with our speakers, I just wanted to highlight two big upcoming events that we are putting on this summer. The first one is Tuesday, August 4th. We're hosting our National Night Out. For several years running now, we've held this at Willow Street, Bramall Park. It runs from 5 to 8 p.m. We always have a live band. This year we've got the Houserockers, so they should bring lots of people that are excited to listen to them and ready to dance. We'll have a handful of food trucks there. We already have Mr. Softy, Mr. Shrimp, and Cousin's Maine Lobster confirmed, as well as Three Brothers. And there's always lots of lines for the food trucks, so get there early for those. For members, we offer $10 off on the food truck. So come get your coupon beforehand. So if you're a paid member of Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, to show our appreciation for that, we give you a discount on the food trucks that night. We'll have lots of games and activities there. There's a giant jumpy slide. We always have face painting and rock painting for the kids, and we'll have a bunch of other games and activities as well. The next event is Saturday 29th. It's our Repair Cafe. This will be held again at Willow Glen Community Center on Lincoln Avenue, kind of between Lincoln and Radio, right off of Kirtner there. And you can bring anything that you need to have repaired, or you can volunteer to help the people there. And again, I want to say my thanks to District 6 for helping sponsor us so that we can afford to do that. And they're also one of our big sponsors for National Night Out. So we love partnering with them. They're great supporters of our community, and lucky to have such a great team on the council who's just really on top of things this year. So we will jump into our agenda. The first up is Jessica Hellman, who is Councilmember Mulcahy's Community Relations Coordinator. And I'll pass it off to her to give you an update for what's going on in District 6.
Thank you, Maren, and for the kind words and introduction. So I have some updates here. The big thing is that our June e-letter came out last Friday. So a lot of this information that I'm going to be sharing right now is a bit of a repeat from that. So if you're not on it, I recommend getting on it. There's a lot of great information about events and also what's happening at council. And I also wanted to preface that heading into July, a lot of our staff on the team will be taking vacation. Council's also not in session. So we might have some slower response times if you're emailing us frequently. But we will be here, but I just want to preface and kind of put that disclaimer out there. First thing that a change from council, remote participation at council meetings has been reinstated per state law. So you can provide public comment now through Zoom. Previously, it had only been in person, so that's a new change. So if you would like, you can do that tomorrow. We are still working on getting through the budget cycle. One exciting expansion project program that was passed last Tuesday. So the last budget cycle, our office had kind of created and funded this pilot program at the Municipal Rose Garden, MRG for short. We have 2 rose gardens in our district, so MRG. Was a park attendant pilot program, and essentially that provided dedicated staffing for permit enforcement, grounds maintenance, and volunteer coordination. And it was a really successful program. So in this budget cycle, we have secured funding for that to continue on through this upcoming year, and also expand the program to Bramhall on certain days during busy times. So that is a big change. Bramhall is, of course, a beloved and highly utilized park in our district, so we're excited to see those changes. and get some more attention out there when it's being used. Okay, so also another thing that we have been hearing from our constituents in the Willow Glen area are questions about coyotes. Um, if you have had the pleasure of interacting with a coyote, they are more frequent in our neighborhoods, specifically off of Dry Creek near Hamilton and Meridian area over there. Um, so wildlife management doesn't necessarily fall within the city's jurisdiction. Um, it's kind of a complicated mix between the county and the state. So we've coordinated with the county and the state to kind of get some information back to residents about what to do when there's coyotes in your neighborhood. Um, and if you go to the CA Department of Fish and Wildlife's website, they have a really great informational kind of spreadsheet almost of all of the to know to avoid conflicts with coyotes. But also, we have coordinated with the county to get an investigation of the area just to kind of get the experts out here to see if there's any dens or anything, any information that can be shared about the situation with residents, even more so. Um, so just want to put that out there. And if you want more resources, in our newsletter or e-letter, there was a bunch of hyperlinks. So, but if you want to know where you can go to talk to people, that would be the county and the state. Um, but of course, we're working with them to make sure that we have good information to residents about how to approach situations with coyotes. Um, next, so there's going to be a community engagement series that PRNS, the Parks Department, is hosting about renaming downtown's Plaza Park, previously Cesar Chavez Plaza Park. And there's actually the first listening session is right now, but I just wanted to share with you guys other opportunities to engage and share your opinions. So the next one will be Wednesday, this Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. And you can look this up too. And then there's also going to be a public meeting renaming process and community survey Wednesday, June 24th. Um, and if there's a strong interest, I can share these links and whatnot with Marin so that she can get that information directly to you. Um, Additionally, we will be having a pop-up permit, which is the planning and building department has these pop-up permits where you can essentially kind of fast-track information about if you want to build or add an ADU, and that kind of sort of thing where you need permits. So there's going to be pop-up permits at the Rose Garden Library Saturday, June 27th at 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. So if you are interested in attending that, it's a super popular program. It helps people get that information kind of streamlined. It can be pretty complicated, especially in San Jose. Okay, and now I'm on to upcoming events. San Pedro Square has watch parties for every single game if you are a soccer lover like myself. So there's also other opportunities. If you look up sj26.org, you can find everything and anything you would like about how to enjoy the FIFA World Cup this year in San Jose. So, oh, thank you from the Susan Ellenberg's office. Thank you for providing that for everyone. So that's a great way to get involved if you would like to watch those games. Make Music Day is this Sunday, Father's Day. If you're unfamiliar, Make Music Day is a day in the city where there's a bunch of local bands and artists at different locations and businesses that have volunteered to host these artists. So there will be a bunch of different locations throughout the city if you're interested. Again, I can get that link to Marin, but if you can also just look up Make Music Day San Jose. There's their own website and they have all the locations. I think there's going to be one at Artegas on Cohen Lincoln. We will also have this Saturday opera in the Rose Garden. So that's a huge event. There will be a bunch of people at the Rose Garden. It's a free event, so if you're interested, you're welcome to join. And another kind of theater musical event is we have Silicon Valley Shakespeare, Shakespeare in the Park, um, this weekend and next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 p.m. So if you are interested, please come out. It's a great program, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 p.m. For this weekend and the next weekend as well. Okay, I think that is everything that I have right now. Um, I will put a link in the chat to our last e-letter, which will have the links to everything that I just mentioned to make it a little easier for anyone who's interested. Um, but yeah, if there's any quick questions or any clarification I can provide, more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And Ian, I see you have a hand raised. If you want to go ahead and ask your
Hello
question.
there, folks. This is a new meeting for me. I'm Ian Cameron, president of the Lawn Bowls Club in Bramall Park. And
Thank you
first
for
of all, I
joining.
wanted to thank District 6 for showing up on Thursday at our 60th anniversary, along with Mayor Mahan. So, Jessica, thanks to Lynn Lee and crew. It was great to see them.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll be
you
sure to pass the message.
you mentioned the newsletter in July. Does that mean any coverage that would have come from their presence there will or will not be in the July newsletter?
It will be in the July newsletter if
Okay.
the event coverage, yeah.
All right, that's fantastic. It really was great to have them there. And Maren, I wanted to say hello and introduce myself to this group, but for now, I'm just going to keep quiet. But I'm very keen to develop a closer relationship with the association
Sounds
and the
great,
district
Ian. Thank you.
office.
Excellent. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you more.
Thanks.
I have one more update that I forgot to mention.
Yeah, go for it.
I will be leaving the District 6 office. So this may or may not be the last meeting with you all, which makes me very sad.
Aw.
But I will be leaving in early August. I'm going to law school. So you guys, I will make sure that you guys will have a great person who will be here. Um, but I did want to share that with you all to hear it from me. But it's been great coming to all the meetings and getting to know the neighborhood in a different way. As you all probably know, I've shared a million times. I grew up here. I grew up in Willow Glen, so it's been like the best experience being able to serve the community in this way. So I'm very grateful to you all and just amazing experiences. So thank you.
Congratulations
Congratulations.
on law school.
Yeah,
That's
we're gonna miss you,
wonderful.
Jessica, but I'm very excited to hear what you do next.
I'll miss you guys too. I'll be back or around at least.
Are you going to law school locally or are you going away somewhere?
I'm going to Berkeley, so a little bit further away, but not too
Excellent.
far away. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good. You and I are students there together right now then.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So I've gotten a few messages that people are having a hard time logging in because it's requiring people to sign in. So I apologize for those who aren't able to join in. I'm going to kind of try to continue to allow that in the background. In the meantime, Captain Tran, thank you so much for joining tonight. If you want to unmute yourself and give us a little update for the district, that would be fabulous.
Oh my gosh, forgive me. My phone just lit off my little problem I call that I had up. I and I apologize to one for not being uniform. It is after hours and I am in a public place, so if you guys don't mind.
We're happy to have
Uh
you on.
Again, I do apologize for not being able to attend the meeting in the past few months, due to some adjustment that we had to make. I'm hoping that I can attend more meetings more regularly in the future, but that was remain to be seen. With that, let me report out for last month. Give me 1 second. I had a lot of things set up for you folks. Um, okay. All right. So first of all, let's start off with just last month of May. You had 399 cat events. These are everything. These are calls that people call 911. These are events where officers have put themselves out in the neighborhood. These are everything that was recorded through our CAT computer aided system. You had 399 events in May. Out of those 399, only 136 resulted in officer has to document or take in a report. Okay. Some of your top five call for service you had. Obviously, number one was welfare check, and number two was your audible alarm calls that we went to. Number 3 were disturbances. Number 4 was suspicious person calls that we went to. And number 5 were actually our officers making car stop or vehicle stop, vehicle enforcement in your neighborhood. I'm looking at this for May. The number 1 event or location had the highest number of events was 2001 Carter Avenue. And I believe that is where Willow Glen High School and Middle School are located. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, and then let me report a little bit further out. So for the past 6 months of this year, we had a total of 2,000 cat events in your neighborhood. And just to put things in perspective, if we go division-wide for the past 6 months, Western Division responded to 23,000 calls for service. Citywide, we had 88,000 cat incidents. And I want to give you a report out for the number for last year. For 2005, forgive me, let me try to find it here. All right, January 26th. Have it in here. Maybe I did. No, maybe I didn't. Only had it for the past 6 months. So let me see here. Okay, at that. All right. And I am going to tell you your top 5 incidents that we responded to for the past 6 months. Number 1, again, welfare checks. Number 2, audible alarm. Number 3 was disturbances. Number 4 was parking violation enforcement. And number 5, again, is our officer making vehicle stops in your neighborhood. And that is all I have. There's nothing significant that I can think of. While looking at this, I do notice there was a few hot spots that tends to get a lot of call for service. Number 1 is a little shopping center off of, I believe it's Bird Avenue in Willow. The address is 1130 Bird Avenue. And then the next highest call volumes we have would be Willow Glen and Lincoln. And then third was the area of Willow Glen High School and Middle School area. And a lot of those calls were just minor disturbances and traffic enforcement.
Excellent.
And that is all I have to report out. I hope that makes sense to some of you folks. And bottom line is the call service you have that we have out there, small percentage of these calls resulted in some type of criminal activities that ended up needing a police report or police action.
Thank you so much for the update, Captain Tran. We do have at least one question out there. Zoom user, go ahead and unmute yourself. Is that you, Helen? Zoom user, you have a hand up. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, Maren, sorry. It wouldn't
Thanks,
unmute
Helen.
me.
Okay,
You good?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I have a question for Ken.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just sitting here with John, just listen to your answers. No, I'm just kidding. No pressure.
Yes,
Hey,
ma'am.
have you come across any calls for service or have your people run into the gypsies that beg at various locations, including Safeway, Bird, and Minnesota, the post office on Meridian, and various other locations?
My answer is honestly, I don't know because those don't get really reported to me. But I know what you're talking about, and I have seen them around different locations within our city. And then I'm not surprised if they are at those locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have had quite a few incidents where the so-called gypsies are doing things like swapping jewelries or your typical what you call it, how they'll come up to a victim and then start a conversation, and the next thing you know they'll grab the jewelries or what have you, and before the victims realize what happened. We have
Right.
had a few of these incidents, yes.
Yeah. So, the ones I've been seeing are women with infants and small children begging in front. They usually have a sign. Their sign always says "Need money for rent," and so their husbands drop them off by car in the morning or sometime during the day and pick them up later after they've been sitting out in front of the post office or at the shopping center. And I know we have very loose panhandling, I don't know, muni codes or even penal codes. So I guess, you have to be aggressive and like chasing people down and asking them for money in order for there to be any kind of action taken. But I know I called about the lady and her infant in front of the post office. And I was told by the dispatcher, we don't respond to stuff like that. So, but I did email Michael's office, and I was told that they had a constitutional right to beg in front of the post office. But I know that there is federal law prohibiting that. So I talked to the post office and subsequently got a call back from the supervisor who said that, yes, they will go and ask those people to leave. And if they don't leave, they are going to call the police and have them removed. So would you guys respond to that if the post office calls and wants them removed from their federal property?
Yes, so this is no different than any trespassing calls, right? If a homeowner, a business owner calls for someone they want to trespass, absolutely we would respond. But I want to just keep in mind though, our response time is going to be very dependent on what we have going on at the time. If we have officers available, absolutely we would send somebody, but it would not be a top priority. It would be somewhere in between priority 4 and 5. I mean, it would be at the lowest priority.
Right.
Just
Got
so
it.
you're aware. But yes, we would. The simple answer is yes, we would respond.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Yes,
I think a lot of people are curious about the gypsies, and I can freely call them gypsies because I just ask, "Are you a gypsy?" And they tell me, "Yes, I'm a gypsy." Where are you from? Monrovia, and they tell me where they're from. I mean, obviously, I've run into gypsies before, but anyway, I just wanted to, I want people to hear that yeah, you can take action. I think it's not something we want in our neighborhood or even in our state, in our cities. People begging and using their children, small infants. This woman had an infant that was probably about 5 months old. So yeah, just heads up on all that. And it's nice to know that eventually you'll respond. I understand you have to prioritize your calls, but I just think it's important for people to understand that, yeah, it's not okay, especially in front of a federal building is specific. So, yeah.
Thanks for your question, Helen, and for the answer, Captain Tran. We have a couple more people with questions. Ian, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Captain Tran, I'm going to introduce myself, Ian Cameron, from the Bowls Club in Bramall Park. And I wanted to thank you and the department for all the support you've given us over the years, and then also to see if we can throw the gauntlet down again to the fire chief and have your departments come over and have a match with us one day. So it's an invitation. Let's see what we can scare up. But I wanted to thank you for your service to us. It really matters.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Ian. All right. Any last words, Captain?
I just want to say that the subject of the Romanians crew. I would say if we can, I would say pass the word to educate your neighbors hey, do not, I know it's hard, but do not, whatchamacallit, not give them anything. Just ignore them. And I think, obviously, if they're sitting out there and no one's giving them money, they'll find some other location, they'll go away. But as long as people continue to give them money and donate, they will be there.
Yep.
So we can pass that word to our neighbors and our friends, and that would help.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Mike Faso, I see you have your name up or your hand
Yeah,
up.
I just have a quick question for Officer Tran. Is there a way we can get police on Lincoln Avenue, the Uber drivers and stuff? I mean, they just park wherever they want. You put your flashers on, they're in bike lanes, U-turns in the middle of the road and stuff like that. I'd really like at least a little bit of a crackdown would probably prevent some of that to continue on. And on another note, kids on those little e-bikes. You know, I saw them running over the elementary school, just trashing the lawn and stuff like that. There's some other areas in front of, I believe it's the flower shop or the plant shop that's on Lincoln Avenue as well, where they're doing donuts around there and stuff. Can we do anything about them? I mean, it should come from the parents, but unfortunately, we got to go up to the top.
Yeah, I'll answer your first question regarding the delivery drivers on Lincoln Avenue with the bad behavior. We have been and I'll continue to get our folks to go out there. Unfortunately, due to recent budget restrictions, I don't have as many resources available, but I always ask our patrol folks, hey, if you have free time, especially during the evening hours, if they can come out there and do some enforcement, and I'll continue to encourage our folks to go out there. In regard to the e-bikes, obviously with juveniles, it's a little more challenging, right? And our folks always try to do what they can. I'm not sure if you've seen a video, YouTube video, maybe a few months ago, where our folks were actually trying to do some enforcement. It happened on Capitol Expressway, and that was met with a lot of pushback as well. So it is challenging when we're dealing with juveniles on something like that. But our folks will always trying to enforce vehicle codes as much as they can and whenever they can.
Yeah, I totally understand how thin you guys are spread, and I appreciate what you guys do every day. Also, I was walking one day, this was a few months ago, and there was a barrage. I don't know, there was like 100 e-bikes and stuff, just terrorizing the neighborhood and stuff. And I just wish there was a way we could, I don't know, educate the parents about this stuff. But as you know, the parents and the kids are never wrong, right?
If we could somehow get our legislators to change the law and hold either the parents or these kids accountable, some type of punishment that's fitting, right? So to deter them from behaving like that.
100% agree. Again, thank you for what you do. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Jim Carter, you have your hand up?
Yes, real quick, two questions. Thank you, Captain Tran, for being here, especially on your time off. I appreciate that. You mentioned about staffing issues, and I know that there's a reconfiguration of the districts. I heard about when that was supposed to take place, but I've forgotten the exact date that was going to take place. And then my second part of the question is, are you going to be transferring out of our area?
Thank you for those questions. So the first question, you were talking about redistricting. Yeah. What that is, pretty much we are redrawing the maps, how we deploy our resources. And you know, the way we have it set up now, we have 4 divisions. We divide the city into four main area we call divisions. Within these divisions, you have 4 districts, right? And this has been, we've had this for the past 26 years since I've been on. So now we're realizing with our staff, and we need to replan how we are going to be more effective to deploy our resources. So we will go from 16 districts down to 12, so we can have better supervision, and then the way we dispatch calls would change also. So let me give you an example. So your neighborhood, Willow Glen neighborhood, is within District Sam. Okay. In District Sam, there are 6 beats, 6 smaller areas, and an officer for each shift is assigned. Let's say Officer A is assigned to Willow Glen downtown. Anything that comes out of downtown Willow Glen, that Officer A will get dispatched to. Well, we are changing that because what we're finding out is, let's say Officer A happened to be having lunch all the way on the west side up by Cupertino. If a call comes out in his area, it takes him longer to get back to his beat. In the meantime, there may be other officers who are having lunch in downtown Willow Glen. So not only are we reshaping or redrawing our border, our district lines, we are changing the way we dispatch calls. So for priority 1 and 2 calls will be whoever's closest, because we have GPS in our vehicles now. The officers are closest to that call will get dispatched. And same thing with call for service. Let's say a call comes out in downtown Willow Glen, a vehicle been burglarized. Well, we no longer have a specific officer that has to respond. Whoever's the closest available will get dispatched. And I think that will help improve our response time to call for service. And I believe your question is, am I going to be reassigned? So that the only person who knows that answer will be the chief of police. At this point, there's no indication that I am going anywhere.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you being in this area. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
As do I, Captain Tran. We hope you are allowed to stay in our area.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike
Thank you.
Faso? Oh, that's a thumbs up, not a hands up. Great.
Just a thumbs up.
Got it. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, we will move on then to our speakers from the night, for the night. And I see that Jerad and Ruth are on. So thank you so much for joining. We have our city planning staff here to tell us about San Jose's general plan 4-year review process. And if I can ask everybody to either, if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll read them at the end, or write down your question yourself and I'll let people raise hands and ask questions at the end as well. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. So Jerad or Ruth, you should be able to share yours. And let's see. Stop share. There we go. So I will turn it over to Jerad and Ruth. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Sure. Thanks for having us. I'll get us started. So, Jerad Ferguson, I'm a principal planner with planning, building, and code enforcement with the city. I'm with my colleague Ruth Cueto, who is also a principal planner, and we are the project managers for this update of our general plan, our 4-year review. So just a quick background. Can go on to the next slide, Ruth. So our general plan is our long-range planning document for our city. So our current general plan was adopted in 2011. And so one of the main primary pieces of it, there's many elements of it, but the main element is a land use map. And so it guides what types of land uses can be done throughout the city in coordination with our zoning as a layer underneath that. And there are multiple elements of the general plan, including a housing element, a safety element, an open space element. So as part of our general plan, when it was adopted in 2011, and that's Vision San Jose 2040, so it's intended to plan from 2011 through 2040. As a part of that was to conduct these regular reviews to see how the city was progressing through and how the strategies contained in the general plan were being done. You can go to the next slide, Ruth. So since 2011, we've done 2 general plan 4-year reviews. So this will be our 3rd. And so few reasons why we're doing it now and what we're looking at. We're a little bit delayed. Things got a little bit off with the pandemic, but we've had 2 4-year reviews since the passage of the general plan in 2011. So this will be our third. So it is a part of, as I mentioned, part of our general plan, as a part of the process that we would look at it every 4 years. Some of the other reasons that we're looking at doing it. So as I mentioned, part of our general plan is also our housing element, and so the state requires us to have that housing element as part of our general plan, and every 8 years we have to update that. It has to get approved by the state, and we have to show within that housing element where we'll build housing throughout the city in that 8-year period. And as a part of that process, the state assigns us an allocation of units, a number of units that we're supposed to try to achieve within that 8-year period. So we're right in the middle of our current housing element. So it started in 2023 and runs through 2031. Throughout the state, you're probably familiar with, I know in Willow Glen, there's some few projects that, were related to our delay in getting our housing element approved. And so, but as a part of that, we had a number of strategies that we have to achieve, in addition to showing not only where we would build the housing, what strategies we would pursue in order to make sure that we're achieving the numbers that were given to us. So part of this update is to continue to be compliant with that housing element that was approved by the state. So there are a number of strategies that I'll talk about that we're looking into that are a result of some of the things that the city agreed to as a part of that process. And then as we're getting to the middle of this housing element process, we're also setting the groundwork. We're trying to set the groundwork to start the next housing element process. So as I mentioned, we were delayed, as were many cities, in getting our housing element done because of kind of all the new requirements that the state put on us in this last round of housing element. We want to be well prepared to go into that next cycle. So starting early and getting it done on time so that we are not subject to the penalty of builder's remedy is also some of the third reason why we're looking at that. And so broadly speaking, the review focuses on looking to increase the capacity of residential in the city, meaning what we can build, looking at the strategy around missing middle housing, and I'll talk a little bit about that and what that means. Looking again about our jobs to employed residents balance within the city. So how many people live in the city versus how many people work in the city. And then also looking at our urban village strategy, which was one of kind of the key strategies in our general plan in terms of how we would grow the city. So next slide. So first, getting into that urban village bucket. So one of the key strategies of the general plan is that we would focus our growth along our commercial corridors, our transit corridors. So where we have light rail, where we have BART, where we have other types of transit, or where we have kind of primary commercial centers. So obviously we have downtown as a growth area, and we have areas in North San Jose that are heavy employment, but these are areas where it's envisioned that there would change from commercial to mixed use development. So we would be going from maybe two stories to taller mid to low rise apartment buildings. So think 5 to 7 stories in that range. And as a part of that strategy, we would look to do individual planning efforts in each of those villages. So the general plan designated 62 of those areas throughout the city, and originally they were planned to be done in phases. But part of our challenge was that we haven't completed all 62 of those. And so this first slide just gives you a sense of the different types. There's kind of 4 main categories. So I mentioned we had our kind of regional transit type urban villages. These are ones around our BART stations or Caltrain stations. We have local transit villages. These are ones that are around light rail stations. The commercial corridors or centers, those typically have transit, but not light rail necessarily. And then we also have these smaller neighborhood urban villages. These are typically maybe 2 or 3 shopping centers around a prominent intersection. Next slide. So as I mentioned, part of the problem or part of the challenge is that we've completed 16 out of the 62 since 2011. And why that's challenging is that until the way it was set up, until we complete those plans, the land use typically remains commercial. So it does not enable us to provide as much opportunity for new housing growth in those areas until we complete those plans. So we currently have 2 plans in process, and we have 46 villages that are unplanned. So like I said, housing's not allowed there unless there's some certain special situations where it is, but generally speaking, not allowed. So part of this process was thinking about ways in which we could modify that strategy to try to speed up this process. So some of the things that we're talking about as a part of this in order to speed up that process is combining some of those urban village areas together. Also looking at streamlining the process to simplify the planning documents that are produced, and to still, obviously a key core concept within doing the urban village planning work was that it would involve community input from the surrounding community of the village. And so still trying to maintain ties and, get the feedback of the residents that live nearby where the urban village would be. So our proposal, broadly speaking, was to combine village areas together to look at simplifying the documents while still ensuring community input. Next slide. So kind of the effect of our proposals is to combine some of those areas together and lower the total number of processes that have to be completed on those neighborhood villages that I mentioned. The approach that we're recommending is that we've only done one of those types of village plans, and they tend to be very small with typically limited opportunities. And so our proposal is not to complete a separate process for each, but to look at planning all of those villages as one process and making strategic changes to allow for mixed use while preserving commercial in those areas. A lot of them, when you look at them, it could often have the supermarket or other key commercial that's serving the neighborhood. And so, providing opportunity for housing while still preserving community serving commercial as a part of that process. And then the other piece that's not in these slides yet, because we're going to be going to the final task force meeting on Wednesday night. But one of the pieces or one of the elements that's changed a little bit since we developed some of these strategies is Senate Bill 79. So that was passed last year. It takes effect July 1st. And it it would allow residential within a half mile of transit stations. And those transit stations are light rail, Caltrain, and BART. And so we have about 25 villages that are in those areas where housing would be allowed by right through this state law. And so we wanted to think a little bit about what that would mean for our strategies and what that would mean for the city's urban village strategy moving forward. And so how we're modifying this a little bit is that we're going to prioritize working on those village plans for areas that are outside of that Senate Bill 79 area. Since those already allow for housing, we would be looking at how we could plan those areas that are outside of those. So next slide. So getting into the next category of the 4 that I mentioned, so missing middle housing. So missing middle housing, the middle or really refers to kind of a couple of things, but it's meant to be medium density. So could be a variety of building types. You can see kind of the illustration here demonstrating or showing some of those types. generally between 2 to 20 units in size, but at a scale that's compatible with single-family neighborhoods. These could be smaller units as well that could be starter homes and are more typically for sale versus for rent, although it could be either. Next slide. So the missing part is really demonstrated here through this data. So this is the chart here is the city as it exists today. The yellow bars and percentages represent the amount of land in the city. And then the blue bars represent as a percentage the number of units. So on the left are single family. So single family compose about 30% of the total housing units in the city and are about 78% of the land for residential throughout the city. And then on the other end, looking at that 20 plus units category or kind of sites with 20 or more units. So they occupy about 17% of the total area of land for residential in the city and provide 66% of the housing units. And in the middle, you have kind of 2 family, 3 family, 5 to 10, 11 to 20 units. And you can see how there's less of those, both in terms of available land for it and number of units that currently serve, number of developments that currently serve that. So that's when we say missing middle, that's the missing that's sort of missing. Next slide. So some existing state law has changed recently over the years around this. So Senate Bill 9. This allows duplexes on single family lots, and then it allows subdivision of those lots, and you could build an additional units or a duplex. So effectively allows up to 4 units on single family lots. It has a minimum lot size and also has owner occupancy requirement. And then more recently, Senate Bill 1123. So this applies to vacant single family lots. Allows subdivision and up to 10 parcels or 10 units. And there's also some other interpretations of it recently where the existing house can be designated on a remainder lot and then the rest of the lot would become vacant. That took effect just last July as well. So these are sort of state bills looking at allowing between that 4 and 10 unit range of housing within single family. Next slide. So part of our housing element when we adopted it was to look at a strategy for small multifamily housing or missing middle housing. And so part of the strategy was to look at allowing 4 to 10 units in locations throughout the city, including in high opportunity areas, and to consider it also as potentially a buffer between urban villages and adjacent neighborhoods. So as a part of this general plan process, this was included as something for us to look at to further that housing element strategy, because there would be general plan changes needed to enable or to allow for this type of housing. Next slide. So as we were looking at ways to approach the strategy in that housing element, what our proposal now is, so the current density on, and when I say density, I mean units per acre. And so residential neighborhood is the land use designation for single family housing throughout the city. And it has a density of 8 units per acre. So if you had a site that's 1 acre, you could build 8 units on it. Obviously, single family lots are smaller than that. So this chart here is showing kind of lot sizes, and these are more typical lot sizes throughout the city. And I'll get into the amount in a minute, but kind of within that red box there are the typical lot sizes of the city. So our proposal is to increase that from 8 units per acre to 32 dwelling units per acre. And the reason is if you look at typical lot size, so if you look across the city, a majority are in between that 3,000 to 6,000 number, so kind of within that red box. So at a 6,000 square foot lot, that is 4 units. It would be allowed through that density of 32 units per acre. Now, state law always allows an ADU in addition to primary unit, as well as allows junior ADUs or JADUs, which are attached ADUs as well. So that's why we have that other line there showing what the potential is there. Next slide. So in addition to the density, there are other ways that this could be limited further by the city. We're proposing a height limit of 35 feet, which is the current maximum allowed under our single family. We are increasing, so typically it's 2.5 stories. We are proposing it go to 3 stories, but still under the 35-foot limit. Now, there are other ways to limit the potential of development through limiting floor area ratio, which is try to explain it, but it limits the maximum you can build on a site. So if you and then also you can regulate based upon lot coverage, so how much of the lot could be covered. And then further, we could also set either restrict mergers of lots or set a maximum lot size that could be resulting from mergers, so which would further limit the total number of units that's potential. The chart here is just showing some other cities in California and outside, and how they've used either one or the other or a combination of these FAR or floor area ratio and lot coverage within their missing middle programs. Next slide. So this is showing all residential neighborhood parcels throughout the city, and then their color associated with lot size. Next slide. So these are some recent examples. So there are some places where you can get to some of these types of development, but the opportunity is more limited, as I said. But so this is one. It's on a 8,900 square foot lot, developed with 6 units with 11 parking spaces. So a density of 29 dwelling units per acre. Next slide. This is on a 10,000 square foot lot, 3 units with 7 parking spaces, 13 dwelling units per acre. Next slide. So just some examples on that, and I will pass it to Ruth to continue.
Thanks, Jerad. So as Jerad mentioned, one of the other topics that we cover as part of the 4-year review is sort of our jobs to employed residents balance. How are we doing in terms of jobs? Do we have sufficient land and capacity for the goals that we have in the general plan? Many of you may know that the city of San Jose faces a bedroom city challenge or bedroom challenge, meaning that we are, I think, the only largest U.S. city that is primarily a bedroom community, meaning most folks that live here do not work in the city of San Jose. They work in, Campbell, Santa Clara, or outside of the county even. And what that leads to are longer commutes out of the city. It impacts air quality and then obviously adds to the transportation costs. In addition to this bedroom city challenge, we also have a challenge as to how our land is divvied up and what are the permitted uses. Approximately 49% of the city's land area allows homes only, so residential uses. Roughly 37% are limited to parks and open space, and that includes hillsides. And then about 14% is dedicated to jobs. And that is everything from your little market, the mall, to manufacturing and industrial uses. And so what we looked at as part of this evaluation was how potential sort of population growth and us increasing residential capacity would impact our ratio, and whether we should change our jobs targets as they are now. I just wanted to point out something else, why it's important that we have jobs here. Obviously, that way you don't have to commute outside of the city, but it also helps us in terms of our fiscal goals. Local jobs do generate a tax base, and it helps the city just be more fiscally strong. And that tax revenue then can go to providing city services like libraries, the police, fire, things like that. And our recommendation is to keep our jobs targets and goals as they are. We're not looking to reduce that. We think the amount that we're currently planning for, while it is ambitious, we think it's still important. We have areas in downtown in North San Jose that we want to protect, again, because they bring in this revenue and they provide jobs for our residents. So going back to the residential capacity sort of work that we're doing, we, in addition to missing middle, we're looking at other ways for us to identify areas of the city where we can grow and have more housing. Right now, we're considering up to 60,000 new housing units, and we would achieve that through rezoning either some office, retail land, targeted general plan amendments along Winchester and the Alameda. Missing middle housing is another strategy. And then also just simplifying the urban village planning process, allowing for sort of development to take fruit there in those areas that are currently not allowed to build housing. And these are the strategies that we think can help, just given sort of the reality that we have. We have limited vacant land. Housing is unaffordable to many people. And we're also contending with this new state law, SB 79, that is allowing housing in areas that we have not planned for yet. We may have been wanting to plan for, as Jerad alluded to with our urban villages, but it is kind of it's a new factor in all of this analysis, and this law does go into effect on July 1st. So I think we do have some interest from folks to take advantage of that law, but that's sort of the reality that we're living under and sort of how we're developing these strategies. And when it comes to Winchester Boulevard and the Alameda, so we looked at these two corridors and presented sort of an overview of the areas at our open houses and on our virtual open house platform, and identified the corridors and sort of what we were looking at, and asked the community questions about trade-offs when it comes to whether we should open up these areas for growth. For both Winchester and the Alameda, we did receive mixed support from the community for additional housing. There's support for modest increase in that density. However, there's still concerns that I think, we hear across the city about height, parking, traffic, neighborhood compatibility, and sort of still wanting to see that ground floor commercial or mixed uses staying within these developments. So this slide shows our recommendations for the Winchester neighborhood, for the Winchester Boulevard. And this is between Forest Avenue, so adjacent to the Valley Fair Urban Village, Valley Fair Shopping Center, up to roughly Boxwood Drive. The areas in pink are sites that we're recommending that they stay neighborhood community commercial, so it would only allow commercial uses. There's a few areas along here that have existing residential, and so we're suggesting just flip them from that pink color to whatever the use is now. Mixed use neighborhood is one example. It's sort of it's hard to distinguish here. I apologize for the coloring, but there's a few sites that already have housing, and we just want them to have that housing designation. And then the biggest change here would be between Forest Avenue and Fernwood Avenue, roughly 6 parcels, as well as this one here, 826 North Winchester Boulevard. Staff is recommending an urban residential land use designation for these to allow for denser housing and more opportunities for housing. That designation would allow a density of between 50 and 95 dwelling units per acre. And when it comes to the Alameda, we did this site-by-site analysis similar to Winchester, and just like Winchester, where we saw that the vacancies in some areas were very low, we especially saw this here in the Alameda, and it's roughly from 880 McKendree Street to Pershing Avenue. This area of the Alameda has a very unique, I think, history. It has the historical overlay. It also has, it has sort of a market of small office spaces. Lots of like attorneys and services tend to use these sites. We have many converted residential homes that were converted to commercial uses. And so again, what we found were very limited opportunities for infill redevelopment. We did identify 2 sites that we are proposing to allow for residential uses, a dense designation, and it is along Emory Street and the Alameda, the parking lot to the YMCA, and then just west of University is an existing motel that has a vacant restaurant in the front. So another just opportunity that we thought maybe this is where we could allow for some housing along the Alameda and still sort of preserve the commercial office uses along the corridor. Another strategy that we're proposing are looking at mixed-use commercial sites. Mixed-use commercial is a designation that was intended to serve as mostly commercial with maybe just a few residential units on top. And we have roughly 779 parcels with this designation throughout the city. They tend to be rather small parcel sizes. About half of them are located in urban villages and growth areas. The thing with the mixed-use commercial designation, though, is that it sort of hasn't lived up to what we expected when we adopted this general plan, right? A wholly commercial, mostly commercial designation. What we have seen on several sites is either residential market rate projects, somewhat market rate projects, or wholly affordable projects find these sites and they use density bonus to get out of the requirement to build commercial. So they essentially build a wholly residential project, maybe with some 1,000, 2,000 square feet of ground floor commercial, but it's not essentially living up to sort of what we envision for mixed use commercial. And given that history of this site and the fact that so many of them are within our urban village areas, we do want to look at these a little bit more closely and identify candidates for conversion to a residential, sort of a wholly residential use that could support commercial but doesn't require it. And then also looking at other sites that maybe these are ones that we want to preserve the existing commercial uses. For example, I think along Key Street between First and Center Road, roughly like by Happy Hollow, there's lots of commercial. It's a mixed use commercial area, mostly sort of neighborhood serving uses. And that's sort of the evaluation that staff has been doing and wants to present to the council. And our recommendation is based on that. So how do we preserve these commercial locations, but then also allow for housing on maybe some of the more larger and transit accessible sites? And I believe that is it in terms of our strategies. Next steps. So this is a list of all the task force meetings that we've had so far. Our next one and last one will be this Wednesday on the urban village strategy. And following that, we are going to Planning Commission the week after with our policy framework. So if you've been following this process, these last 9 months, what we're essentially bringing to the Planning Commission on the 24th is the recommendations we've already shared with them. There's been some modifications. It's not the final vote. This is our framework for some of this work. We don't have the actual changes that we want to make, but we are presenting this to the Planning Commission on the 24th. The staff report will be posted by Wednesday evening this week. And then we're asking the Planning Commission to support our recommendation And then that would go to the city council on August 18th. And any agendas and staff reports, additional staff reports for city council will be posted 10 days before August 18th as well. And you can find all this information as well on our website, on the general plan for your review page. And I did see some questions in the chat. If you'd like,
I'll go ahead and read those. Thank you so much, Jerad and Ruth. I really appreciate it. So the first question is, are you planning urban villages for Willow Glen? In the middle of single family neighborhoods? Is a village a 14-unit development on a previously single family lot?
Sorry, trying to unmute. Let's see. First, in Willow Glen, depends on the boundaries of Willow Glen, which I know sort of. But
so general boundaries, if you
Yeah.
think Meridian, 280, 87, and then down to Foxworthy.
Okay. So there are some sort of around the edges. Meridian and Hamilton is one urban village. It's really limited to the commercial parcels in those areas. Around the Tamian station is one. Around the Kirtner light rail station is one. Let's see. And then there's one around Almaden and Hillsdale. So again, limited to the commercial parcels. We have maps I can share too, but I'm just trying to describe.
I noticed on your neighborhood map that you did share, it was those kind of perimeter ones that you mentioned. I think a lot of people might be concerned about Lincoln Avenue, which is largely commercial.
Yeah, so Lincoln Avenue is a business district. It's not an urban village. We do have some allowances there, but it's not considered an urban village. So some of what I'm talking about would not apply there. So, and then I guess to the second part, an urban village is really it gets at kind of the denser development that Ruth was talking about, some of the changes like that we're proposing along Winchester, Alameda. Urban villages typically have more of that level of density intensity. So potentially 5, 6, 7-story development. I guess kind of an example of that would be at at Bascom and Southwest Expressway by the light rail station there, where the old Dick's Sporting Goods was. Like that development would be something like what would be a typical kind of urban village type of development in terms of density.
Great. And then another question is, what is a high opportunity area?
High opportunity, you may also hear it referred to as high resource. So there's kind of a methodology that the state's developed in relation to where it invests around affordable housing, but it measures, it looks at area income levels, looks at levels of education, adult education, also levels of proficiency for child education, and so areas where that perform higher in those different levels would be higher resource or higher opportunity than areas where perhaps there's lower performance in schools and lower levels of income.
And I remember you referring to a high opportunity area in the presentation. Remind me what that was. So now we know what it is, and what is it that you're trying to do there?
Yeah, so in the initial strategy around missing middle, it was looking at 4 to 10 units, and then it sort of put an emphasis on high opportunity. Now we're suggesting that this be citywide and not limited just to those areas.
Okay. Mike Faso, I'll take your question.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Jerad, for your presentation. I've been a resident of San Jose and Willow Glen area all my life. I've seen the development of San Jose, the streets that have been built and stuff like that. Back in the day, we were basically trying to move people through the valley. And now we're trying to choke off our streets with the so-called road diets, bike lanes. We used to have wide, expansive roads, and now we're choking them off. And then we want to build more housing, but we're building more housing, but we're choking off the road. So how are we going to get people around? I understand that we also have the parking allowances near transit, builder's remedy. You know, all these were Senate bills that kind of push this agenda upon us, you know. And so if we're going to build more houses and we're going to choke off the streets, how are we going to get people around? I mean, I've noticed a lot of the stuff. I mean, I'm a bicycle rider. I love riding bikes through San Jose, but the bike lanes that we proposed, the bike lanes that we put in through Hillsdale and stuff like that, has actually made it worse for bike riders, because you have the bike rider near the sidewalk, the parking on the outside of them, people can't see them. We're really choking down the streets. We really need to move people through our residential areas. I'm a mechanic as well, and a car that's sitting at a light is burning more, making our air worse. Do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex problem, and I think, you know, it's about ensuring that we prioritize all modes of transportation, right? We need people to continue to ride transit and need to increase ridership in transit. You know, we need to make sure that we maintain our roads and have access to roads and provide opportunities like you're suggesting for bikes as well, and, you know, continue to make improvements there as well. So I mean, it's an ongoing challenge and an ongoing, you know, iterative process to improve transportation network. You know, in conjunction with our work, we're always working with our Department of Transportation to look at transportation improvements. You know, it admittedly has, you know, been more challenging with some of those state law changes in terms of some of what the city can do, but it is something, you know, that we do work on and consider and plan for. So.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't mean
Mhm.
to personally attack you
No, I
or
know.
anything like that. I know you're going by the rules that you have and everything, but having grown up here, and I remember when Communication Hill was just all a hill, and that was it. The only communication was the building up above that sent out the radio frequencies and stuff. And having driven through there, having lunch on the other side of the stand, which is a great place that took over the Keys on the Capitol Avenue, I highly recommend it. Driving over Communication Hill Boulevard on a Thursday afternoon and seeing the density of cars that are just parked in front of the housing that's out there. I mean, who are we kidding to say that we don't need any parking at this place? We can have one parking place per unit. We're fooling ourselves because California, just the way we're built, the way you have to get around here, everybody's going to have a car. So one unit is going to have at least 1, 2 to 3 cars per, guaranteed. And then I live at the corner where they're going to build a huge 7-story monstrosity on less than an acre, and they're going to have 132 units, I believe, with some shopping down below. And so now my tree line street is going to be a car line street. And so I have a huge problem with that. And like I said, I don't want to be a personal attack on you. I know your hands are tied, and from everybody that's on this call, their hands are tied. Jerad and Ruth's hands are tied by what our Senate has voted for us and stuff. And so hold our senators accountable for what they're doing to our community and everything. And like I said, I respect what you guys did, and I enjoyed your presentation. And like I said, it's not a personal attack. Thank you.
Thanks for your questions and comments, Mike. Debbie Lou, you have your hand up. If you want to unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Thank you. So I had typed my questions in the chat box as well, but it's actually similar to what was mentioned in that how are we able to require builders to incorporate enough parking, like building parking garages, you know, for multi-family units and multi-use units, because we do have a parking problem.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So the city made a change in, I mean, it's 2023, right, Ruth? 2023, we changed our policy around parking requirements. This was something approved by the city council. We do not have any parking minimums or parking maximums. And so typically, parking is provided by in multifamily. It's really set by the market and economic drivers. I can tell you, across the street from City Hall, we have a twin tower high rise. It has multiple floors of parking. And so it's really up to the market to determine under our current policy. Now, I will also say to add on to what was said by Mike previously, there are limitations. A couple ways the state limits our ability to require parking as well. It sort of occurred after the city made the change, but around certain types of transit stops, we cannot set parking minimums. And then there are other ways. If a development is building affordable housing, they can utilize the state density bonus law to remove parking requirements if they chose to as well. So, but on the positive side, as you saw with some of those developments that I showed, obviously a smaller scale, but those were built after, and we did take a look at, this was a question that came up in relation to our missing middle proposal. We did look at what was built since 2023, since that change. Under 20 units, and typically it was 1.6 spaces per unit. So I know it doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be certain types of development that are under park, but generally if someone wants to sell a unit in particular or even lease a unit, there's still demand for parking, and they're going to try to want to meet that demand for parking. So it's a complicated answer, but that's the where the policy's at. Yes.
So is there a less convoluted solution to, do we need to write letters to our senators and let them know that they need to change the policy? And then once they change the laws and requirements and whatnot up in the state level, and then would we also need to write to our city council people to change the laws within the city level as well? Or can you tell us what we can do as residents in order to fix this issue?
Sure.
Because we can't just say, well, you know what, they already failed us. Now what? Are we gonna just sit there and just say, well, we can't do anything about it now?
Yeah. So both of what you said is true. To change the state law around parking, obviously that would be up to the Assembly and the Senate. And then if you wanted to see other change in areas that are not regulated by the state in terms of parking, that would be something for the city council to could tell us to change that policy as well. So what you said was accurate in terms of how, if you were looking to want to make some change around parking policy, that's how it could be, how you could advocate for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Jerad. Amal, you have your hand raised.
Yep. Thanks. And thanks for being here. I had some confusion about the two different approaches I heard. So one, you said 32 units per acre, or that would be 8 per quarter acre site like ours. And then you also mentioned specific areas that are designated for dense development. So which is it? So can my neighbor, for example, are we eliminating zoning completely? Can my neighbor just go build 8 units if he wants?
So on single family, or what we call residential neighborhood, the density is currently 8 units per acre. So if you had a 1 acre site, then you could build 8 units. What we're proposing is increasing that to 32 units per acre. So if you had a 1 acre site, you could build 32 units. Now, Single family sites, as I showed, some of the tend to be more in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot range. So it's around 4 units plus allowable ADUs. That's what we're proposing under this for single family in the city. Now there are other areas that we've designated as urban villages, and these are along commercial corridors. So think along like Southwest Expressway as an example, along West San Carlos. Those are those types of areas. That's where we have allowed or will allow through the planning processes even higher density. So as Ruth mentioned, 55 units per acre or higher.
Okay, so what I understand is right now, even though there are more units allowed, my entire neighborhood, few streets, few blocks around me are mostly quarter acre lots with 1 unit on the lot. Okay, and then 20-foot setbacks, etc. Are we saying that any of these houses will be allowed to build 8 units on their lot if they wanted?
No, it would be something more like 4 units. So, and just to also add, so currently under state law, Senate Bill 9, someone could build a duplex on those lots today. And additionally, they can split and build 2 duplexes as well. So, but it's the eight is just the density, and it's not an exact number of units. It's just how it depends on the lot size. It varies in scale. So.
Okay.
So Amal did say quarter acre, so that would be bigger than the 5,000 or 6,000.
That's 10,000
square foot.
Yeah, so 10,000. It's on the chart there. I just closed it, so let me pull it up. Do you still have those slides, Ruth? Did you want to share the chart there? Maybe that's helpful to just show it. So yeah, on a 10,000 square foot lot, then with ADUs and with primary units, it would be 7.
Okay, but I don't see any 7 units anywhere near me. Is that just because people chose to not do it, or is there some zoning regulation stopping people from doing it?
Right now the density is 8 units per acre under the city's rule. So and you could only build really up to 2 units. So we're proposing to change that under this as a part of this. Because the zoning is currently single family, so only typically allows 1 unit, and now you can do ADUs, and now you can do duplexes under state law. But what we'd be proposing to change as a part of this is the density, and then we would be modifying the zoning to allow for more units.
Okay, so on behalf of all my neighbors, can you not recommend that? Is there, I mean, going from the neighborhood that we have, and I mean, I grew up in cities. We moved here specifically to be in a bedroom community with open spaces, with parks, with space, with backyards. It's quite a radical departure to have suddenly a 3-story building, 5-story building go up in your backyard, right?
Well, it would be three stories would be the maximum that we're proposing.
Okay, I mean, peeping toms can still see whether it's 3 stories or 10 stories, right? So
yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. We're trying to balance between it's very expensive to live in San Jose, to own homes and to purchase homes, and so we're trying to provide opportunity for more housing and more units in a way that does match or at least is closer to the neighborhood characteristics than perhaps larger densities. And so we're trying to balance those two things together and provide opportunities for people to find
I understand that, and I have a couple of things on that. So I noticed that there is a lot of construction happened in downtown San Jose, which is 10 minutes from here. That's where my office is, right? So, and a lot of these buildings are sitting empty, so they are not getting rented. And it's so bad that one building was going bad and city decided to step in and subsidize rents in that building. And then I recently visited Denver. Denver downtown is completely nobody is in the downtown. Except for New York, I visit various downtowns. Except for New York and Chicago downtowns, most downtowns nobody wants to live in. Right. So the the story that we have housing shortage doesn't seem to pan out because our rents haven't gone up drastically, even kept up with inflation. And yes, single family homes are more expensive, and but there are uh, people who want to rent can rent. So I'm not sure that the second thing is SJUSD recently closed like third of their schools, or they wanted to close third of elementaries because people are moving out. So the story that there are many people moving here and we don't have enough homes for people doesn't seem to pan out for in other areas when we cross check with school enrollment or what we see in rental market, etc., etc. So maybe we are over constructing.
Well, I mean, we have not sufficiently built housing to supply or to meet the needs of our community. So even if there are places for rent, people could still be people could be underhoused. They could be living, multiple people to a unit because they can't afford the rents, because rents are too high. People could be commuting from farther distances away where rent is cheaper because they can't afford to purchase a home here. So there's multiple ways in which the market can be distorted and not properly delivering units. I know a lot of friends that cannot purchase homes or and so we have some of the highest rents in the country in San Jose. So adding to supply is a way to change that. And also adding supply of affordable homes is also a way to change that, particularly for those other income categories.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Amal?
I mean, that doesn't match the data that I have. We don't have highest rents in the country, because I compared what you can afford on a teacher's salary. So if you the easiest way to compare rents is to see what teachers make as entry level salaries, and then what percentage of that is your typical rent. And I compared that to in various metro areas, uh, and we don't have highest rents. New York rents are through the roof, and New York is one of the densest cities in the world, right? So in America, New York is the densest city, and even with all that density, the rents are higher, the homes are more expensive. The theory that denser areas lead to lower housing cost, it just doesn't pan out. New York, if you look at San Francisco. San Francisco is per square foot way more expensive than here. So by building more, we're not going to reduce the per square foot housing cost. We're just going to make it more expensive for everybody, and the quality of houses is going to go down. But I mean that ball is rolling. The other thing I also everybody pointed to parking, but one of the big problems we have in the area is water. We have had some good winters, so drought hasn't been an issue. But when I moved here 10 years ago, drought was a big issue, and everybody was encouraging people to uh, to get rid of lawns, etc., etc. How are we going to get water for all these new people? Or because every new house, every new person needs more water. So I don't think the utility aspect of this and the the infrastructure aspect is thought out. Or I don't know if that's part of your plan, or is that part of some other plan?
When we look at Ruth mentioned the environmental analysis, those typically look at assessment of water supply and also infrastructure capacity, such as sanitary sewer and those sorts of things. So it's something we look at as a part of the environmental analysis when we're adding the capacity.
Okay. Is there a place where I can share some of the data with a smaller group, maybe you, and you can take a look at that for.
Sure, I'll put my email in the chat and I'm happy to take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Amal, you can share it with me too, and we can talk about other places that we can share it as well.
All right.
So membership at WGNA.net. I'm going to read a few of the questions that are in the chat so we can go through these a little bit quicker, and then I'll get back to people who still have hands in their air after that. So Jerad or Ruth, what has been your feedback from people in single family neighborhoods? Other than what you've heard tonight, what are you hearing when you've done these other town halls or places where you've heard feedback?
I think in terms of missing middle and even some feedback we received when we were requesting on the Alameda and Winchester is while there is support for identifying, housing and housing opportunity sites, we did hear concerns about neighborhood compatibility, about, heights and how these projects would interface with the existing single family neighborhoods. And to Jerad, sort of pointing back to his presentation, that's sort of the next step in terms of the analysis. And one of the recommendations, though, is to maintain the heights that are currently permitted in single family neighborhoods, which is 35 feet. Allow another half story. Right now, you're allowed 2.5 stories in single family, so go up to 3. And then him and his team would work on those standards, whether it's setbacks, the side setbacks, rear setbacks, step backs, to minimize or help sort of integrate these missing middle housing types within existing neighborhoods.
Would you say you're getting more support for helping out the missing middle, or you're getting more pushback from people in single family neighborhoods who are concerned about being pushed for parking and height in their neighborhoods?
Do you have any more thoughts, Jerad?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've heard from you all tonight is similar to what we've heard when we went to other neighborhood association meetings. When we've talked to folks in the open houses, I would say there was a variety of opinions. People maybe just concerned about parking, but were okay with density. People who were very opposed to it. People who were supportive of giving other opportunities. So it kind of was a range. And so, but it depended on kind of the neighborhood and the situation of the persons. But the concerns that we're hearing from you are ones that we've heard from other neighbors as well. So.
Okay, thanks. Long question. Mass transportation is failing in our city and on the peninsula, and now there are proposals to do a tax to prop up BART and other mass transit. We don't have the ridership to support mass transit, no matter what our politicians in Sacramento and San Jose want. Hence, they need more taxes to try to save it. Is your strategy and planning to continue to strangle the ability of people to have cars in favor of supporting bicycles and mass transit?
I think, I don't know if this question came in after Jerad gave his explanation, but developers can sort of build to what they think the market is when it comes to parking. Parking is not, what was it? It's not disallowed. It's that we don't have minimums. So we have seen projects still provide parking, maybe not the 2-to-1 or probably closer 1-to-1 or less, especially if they're affordable housing. But I do want to sort of point out to something Jerad said earlier about one of our goals, and many of our policies in the general plan do call for supporting different modes of transportation, transit, getting around. And this general plan adopted in 2011 was really, I think, it was ambitious, but it was also looking at likely 50 years of history of the city of San Jose growing into this, basically suburban sprawl, and trying to course correct and just give these other types of transit opportunities to take shape in our city, whether they're, the protected bike lanes now, transit, etc. But it has been a long time that we did not sort of prioritize this work, and that's what this general plan really was about. And not just the general plan, even since the adoption of the general plan, we've had other state laws that really wanted cities to move away from sort of the parking maximums or parking minimums, and give these other sort of transit options and opportunity.
Thank you, Ruth. Next question. What is the city doing in keeping track of vacancies and slowing down building while the vacancies get filled?
Our housing department tracks vacancies on apartments. We've gone through quite a period of slow building now. As I mentioned, we have through the state and through our housing element, we're required to show we have capacity and to allow for a building of a certain number of units for each 8-year period. So our current is 62,200 units from 2023 to 2031. So we cannot slow building or restrict building. We're supposed to be trying to meet that target to produce that amount of units in that 8-year period. Building is very challenging right now because of the economics of building. So we're not hitting the targets that we've been given from the state. So I think the hope is that by allowing different types of housing construction, allowing the missing middle type production, that it could potentially be another way to produce new housing units, potentially lower levels of construction costs, less concrete, less steel to build. So we've continued to produce around 500 ADUs per year, which is a source of housing. So in that similar vein, the idea would be that this would contribute to that ongoing goal if it were to move forward.
Jerad, do you have any statistics on what percentage of ADUs that have been built are actually being rented out to other people rather than just being used by family members or for a yoga studio or an office?
Yeah, we have some data. I don't have it handy. I could share what we can share. But it is something where as people come in to get those building permits to do that, we're asking them to fill out a survey to try to understand what expected rents or if they're not renting, what they expect to do with that. It's something we would like to understand better, but it's hard to get good data on. The state sort of allowed us to consider through a methodology for the whole region and kind of three buckets of low income, moderate income, and above moderate income market rate when we're counting those units, and sort of based on that survey data. But it's it would be good to get a better sense of that. But we're trying to. It's really a voluntary approach, so it's hard to know exactly where that's at. But something we're trying to understand better.
Okay, thanks. Jose, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna piggyback what Amal was talking about when he was talking about vacancies. I recently read an article where the individual who had actually came up with the idea of incentivizing building low-income housing was money going to the builder and to incentivize for them to do more of it. And a lot of the article actually talked about it. A lot of the vacancies are because this building, these incentives start moving building on that front. and that the real better solution is actually increasing our number of vouchers. That if the vouchers were to go up in numbers, more people could then afford the housing, and you'd be able to fill up that housing. And I'm wondering if, and I know the housing department probably it's something that they know about, but maybe it would be smart if we address those vacancies by finding a different model that ultimately will fill them so that we can actually be really increasing living space for people. Right now, if we leave it just on the builder side, the vacancies are going to continue to exist at high numbers, and we're really not accomplishing what we're trying to do is get housing for people.
Thank you
Yeah, I
very
just
much,
want to
Jose.
say I don't know. There's always a vacancy rate in any healthy market or any housing market. I don't know that our vacancy rate is particularly high when compared to other regions. So I don't believe that there's vacant units sitting unleased for the most part. And there can be periods of stabilization if you have a large development that opens and certain challenges. But generally, our vacancy rate is within normal at a regional level and at a city level. And vouchers are really something typically come from federal funding, and they've been pretty limited. They've been used in developments to help move those affordable developments forward. The vouchers are associated with units versus with the tenant or with the individual. And that's primarily been how they've been used in more recent years to provide subsidized affordable housing.
Jerad and Ruth,
Thanks.
I'll send you the article. I'll find it, and it's a lot more
Okay.
interesting than me doing a 2-minute speech.
Thanks, Jose. That'd
Sounds
be
good.
great. Debbie?
Yeah, so along the line of vacancy, do you know what is the vacancy rate right now across the board? And then in different areas, especially in downtown San Jose, like one resident has mentioned that, and I've seen that also, in that there's a lot of vacancies in those buildings in downtown San Jose, in those apartments, the new apartments that have been built. Um, and yeah, so I mean, when you're talking about low vacancy rate compare across the board, that could be that you're combining all areas and not just one area also. So, I mean, do you actually have different vacancy rates for various areas within the city?
Sorry, I
Jerad,
thought
you're
I was
muted.
unmuted. Yeah, sorry. I clicked it. Yeah, I mean, vacancy data depends. I mean, there's different sources. You can get it for different regions and different areas. I mean, it's something usually you track citywide on a macro level. There are two specific examples downtown where vacancy has been higher. One development I think was sort of mentioned, the most recent high rise in downtown. Those units were kind of unique. And so there was high vacancy in sort of the larger units. The studios were leased, but not sort of the 1 and 2 bedrooms. And that's where there's a new program with the city stepping in with a new purchaser in that building. The other high rise downtown, a large number of units, large numbers of units coming on can take a while to stabilize. It again doesn't necessarily mean that at a macro level or at a level across the city or area that there is high vacancy. We have vacancy data. I don't have it with me. I'm happy to pull it and share it. But generally, our market in San Jose in terms of vacancy is not something that we have lots of vacant units sitting not being rented per se. But I'm happy to kind of get more of the details there. But again, absent that, regardless of the vacancy data, we're still required to show and plan how we could build more, or how the private developers could build more housing, both for low income, moderate income, and market rate development.
So I guess the follow-up question to that would be, why does the city of San Jose want to continue to build if we said that, we're a bedroom community and we're not generating enough money by being a bedroom community? So we need to attract businesses rather than residents. So why do we continue to have to build? Is there a law or regulation that says that we have to do this? Because we really need to actually have space for our businesses to come over here as opposed to continue to be a bedroom community. Because if we're going to build more residents, then more people are going to want to come, I mean, here because there's availability, right? As opposed to other cities need to do the same thing because they have the Google campuses over there. They have the Apple campus is over there. They need to also take care of their workers as well. So why, yeah.
So I think generally as a city policy priority, we do want to increase the number of housing units in order to change, in terms of affordability, but there also is state law that requires us to allow for the building of these housing units. So I mentioned the housing element. Every city is required to have a housing element. And in that housing element, we're supposed to show how over that 8-year period, we have to build the number of units that are assigned to us through the state. So we're required to make planning and plan for that effort. And over the years, the requirements around what level of strategies or policies we need to implement has also increased in terms of the pressure from the state in order to make changes around housing. So that being said, we do want to still continue to encourage increased employment activity and economic growth in the city. So increasing the amount of jobs remains important to us, and preserving lands for employment remains important to us, as Ruth talked about. So both things are important, and a healthy housing market, an affordable housing market, is also important for economic development in terms of attracting and retaining employers. They want to know that their employees can have an affordable place to live, and that cost of living is good as well. So but they drive each other.
Yeah, I understand that concept, but I just don't understand why, there's a bunch of people who work, for Google, in the city of Mountain View that have to come and live here. Why doesn't the city of Mountain View build, housing for them kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're required to build housing for them over here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're also required to build housing as well. I know a large portion that was meant to be Google is, where they're planning for housing there. So, the way the law is intended to apply is for all cities. I think it's been an ongoing challenge for San Jose, though, is that we have been someone who does, in the county build, a lot of housing, particularly serving affordable housing. And so making sure that all jurisdictions are, trying to strive and achieve their goals is important. So something we've always advocated for as well, that, other cities are trying to make the same effort as we are in terms of housing.
So it sounds like, again, we need to talk to our senators to resolve that issue. Hopefully. Thank you.
Jerad, do you know how the state determines the number of units each city has to build?
Yeah,
Just
so
kinda general.
every 8-year cycle, there's a process, and it gets allocated through each area's regional government. So for us, ABAG, MTC, is the regional government entity, and they have a process where they look at a variety of factors. So the number comes from the state for our whole region, and then it goes through that government entity and gets assigned to the individual jurisdictions, including counties as well, get an assignment of units, and all cities also get an assignment of units through that process. And so when they go through that methodology process, they look at factors like what is the what's the overcrowding like, or based upon available data in housing units? What does the population growth look like in those areas? So there's kind of a variety of factors that then they then use to assign housing units to the city. So this last cycle there was a much higher number of units assigned throughout the state and in our region. What was our percentage increase from the fifth cycle, Ruth?
Was it, I think, 80%? Yeah.
Yeah.
So contacting them might be something we could do to look at their methodology and maybe point out some things they might be missing.
Yeah, when it comes to this next cycle, in a few years, they'll be looking at that process again. So it was, and cities were engaged. Our city was engaged. A lot of cities were engaged, and did sort of have take issue with how the number of units being assigned, but that's the process given to us, and so I think we were San Jose, even though ours was large, it was still something that was within, compared to other cities, we felt like we didn't get the the worst level of assignment. So we were more accepting of it, but it was a lot of units, and the number, the way in which we had to choose the sites was particularly challenging in terms of the number of requirements that the state kind of puts on in terms of how we have to show that the units are ready and available for housing construction. The bar has been set quite high through changes throughout the years to that process.
Okay, thanks for helping us understand the process. Helen, you have a hand up still. Did you have another question?
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say I've seen all the chats and I'm hearing the frustration, certainly of a young lady who spoke about not only the parking, but about the fact that there's these vacancies in San Jose. And I first of all, when she brought up the fact that why aren't these surrounding jurisdictions, why don't they have a housing requirement? Why aren't they building the housing, since we're the bedroom community? And the truth be told, at some points, jurisdictions like Palo Alto and some other smaller jurisdictions actually sold their housing requirements to San Jose. In other words, for money, San Jose took on, other considerations and money, probably, took on their responsibility to build the housing. So San Jose willingly went into these types of agreements. So that's part of the problem. But also, it's a good point that we have all these vacancies downtown. They aren't able to rent these houses and these units. And I think that it's kind of pie in the sky and very wishful thinking to think it's just going to stabilize and suddenly rents are going to be affordable and people are going to be moving into this housing. So we keep building, which puts money in the developer's pocket, but ultimately we are not filling those units. And I remind people that, people, and now this is coming home to roost because now it's affecting our neighborhoods and our communities with these new zoning laws, and this certainly the very liberal approach to allowing people to put multiple units on their single family lots. That came about because those laws were passed by the supermajority in our state government. And unfortunately, I guess people aren't paying attention to the platforms of these politicians, because I don't think it's been hidden from any of us before these elections and in the past, decade, that they have certain philosophies about housing and what they want to do in neighborhoods as far as building and degentrifying neighborhoods. So,
hey, Helen, can you send me information about Palo Alto selling their housing requirement? I'm not familiar with that. And I do know that Palo Alto is building a lot of housing. So I'd love more information.
It goes back as far as when Liccardo was on the city council. So we'll see if we can dig that up. That comes from firsthand knowledge from John, who obviously was higher
Yeah,
up.
send me some info. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
But
I'm gonna
also,
let Jerad and Ruth
Maren,
go.
before you continue, I just want to say it. People, you get what you vote for. And I've said it to many people, and I know nobody wants to hear it because the horse is out of the barn, but you do in fact get what you pay for.
Thank you, Helen. All right, Jerad and Ruth, I suspect that you've gotten a lot of really hard questions, not just from us, but other people. So thank you for your service. I know you've got a tough job when you're making decisions that you're required to make that people aren't always happy with. So appreciate your time and your expertise in answering all our hard questions.
Thank you. Have a good
No
night.
problem. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you have any other information you want to send me, I'll send it out to the group.
Okay.
And then
Send you a
before
copy
we
of the presentation.
Oh, that
Yeah.
would be fabulous. Thank you, Ruth. And then before we go, we have Chris Core, who's been super patient. He is the communications director for County Supervisor Ellenberg's office. I thought he'd want to give us a little update on the county budget before we wrap up for the night. Or
Perfect.
any other news you have?
Yeah, thanks, Maren. Hi, everybody. So, like Maren said, I'm Chris, Supervisor Susan Allenberg's office. Just kind of giving updates about what's going on this week. Starting today was our first day of our 3 days of budget hearings. So today, tomorrow, and then again on Thursday at 1:30, we'll have our public meetings. You can either come in person, they'll be on YouTube and also on the county's website as well, going through approving the county's budget right now. So about 2 weeks ago, was the budget workshop. So kind of going through the different processes and kind of getting changes before these budget hearings. Going into those budget workshops, the biggest hit that our county budget was going to be seeing was to behavioral health. So throughout the last couple of weeks, we've kind of pushed for a little bit more of a state advocacy, reaching out to state legislators, state senators, really trying to get more money for behavioral health. The state also was not going to fund any public hospitals or indigent care as well. So these were some things that we were hoping to kind of move the needle of before this week. We were able to move two forward. So we did get $250 million for public hospital systems in California, and then $125 million for indigent care. This is for the overall state itself, so not just in Santa Clara County. But the Governor Newsom's original proposal was $0. So it was a little bit more from the state legislature in that sense. But we did not get anything extra for behavioral health. So behavioral health was a 0 from Newsom. It stayed a 0, so that number's not going to move itself. Today was the behavioral health aspect of it. So that one is for now finalized. We'll be having more updates about kind of the shifting of funds and how that will look now that the state isn't really stepping in to kind of help with that care. As of right now, for the next year, we're not seeing any direct cuts at this time. So there still is some time for us to see what we can do for the state level wide, federal wide, and also we're working with some philanthropic groups as well to see about behavioral health itself. Tomorrow's main point, and I would say kind of the bigger one that we're focusing on for the budget tomorrow, is our our Office of Children and Family Policy. So the supervisor really has a lot of hands in this kind of realm as well. We're working on a complete reform of this department, more so to have a lot more transparency for child welfare cases, making sure that we kind of have an organization and special hearings for child welfare cases moving forward as well. So that's going to be the bigger talk tomorrow that the supervisor is moving forward with alongside Supervisor Arenas, just making sure that with this budget process, not only do we get the funds secured for our department, but also that we kind of look for different processes to make sure that when it comes to these cases, when it comes to anything that we're doing with children and families, that we have more transparency for how our employment's kind of operating, how different cases are running, and also where funds are going as well. And then the final day is more so like the community aspect. So I know, Maren, you're familiar with the kind of the budget inventory process of how the every year the board has money that they can give to 501c3 organizations. That will be under discussion on Thursday to see the different allocations now. Our district itself is supposed to have a little bit of a decrease that we normally have. It shouldn't have too big of an impact on any kind of sponsorships that we do for now, but we are still monitoring to see how that gets affected too as well. So those are kind of the main conversations that we'll be having this week. Following up after these meetings, we're hoping to have a pretty easy to kind of understand like sheet that I can send out to all of our neighborhood groups, just so you can all understand, kind of brief throughout these meetings because each one's like 4 hours long, just to make sure that you all have the information from each one instead of if you don't get to tune in this week too as well. So that's kind of the main things that we're working on now, and then any questions I could take as well.
Thanks so much, Chris. We'll look forward to getting those synopsis of the meetings because, yeah, 4 hours is long. You've suffered with us for over 2 hours, though. Too many meetings this week. Helen, you have a hand up? Oh, hand went down. Okay. Any other questions for Chris about supervisor's office, the county budget? All right. Excellent. Thank you for everybody who hung in here for the long meeting tonight. We plan on having a meeting in September. One of the things we're going to talk about is the trails in the area, in particular, connecting Meridian to Three Creeks. So stay tuned for that. We do not, as of this point, plan on having any July meetings. I know a lot of people travel in the summer, and we have 2 big events in August that we're busy with. So join us for a meeting. Probably be in person unless we have some speakers that can't make it in person in September, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.